Hello and welcome to Hooting Mandrills. Today we're going to hoot about foundations with a focus on the green cards. These cards will be around in Standard forever, 5 years at least. All right, let's start it off with some elves. We have, one of the most important elves coming to Standard being Llanowar Elves for all types of players, not only the elf kindred ones, which is I think the first dork maybe ever printed in Magic is back.
Birds of Paradise is alpha. I think Fynn Elves is the first version of this. That was the one they should have put into...
This one's more recognizable, I guess, more printings. But we also have more mana creating elves in Elvish Archdruid, another reprint for a colorless 2/green, 2/2. Other elf creatures you control get +1/+1, and then tap to add green for each elf you control. So I think that elves is ready for Standard. We'll see quite a few other ones. I guess we're also getting Imperious Prefect for 2 and a green, 2/2. Other elves you control get +1/+1, and you can tap and pay a green and create elf warrior tokens.
Yeah, we've still got Leaf Crown Visionary in Standard. It hasn't had much to do, but now it does. So, elf ball away.
Yeah, lots of powerful elves in Standard now with the new foundation set. All right, up next we have Genesis Wave for X and 3 green. Reveal the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of permanent cards with mana value X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Then put all cards revealed this way that weren't put into the battlefield into your graveyard. So that's a cool ability, obviously, a sort of commandery cost.
Yeah, this is an old card, popular commander card. Probably worse than Storm the Festival. Storm the Festival's not in Standard, but in Pioneer, where it sees play, you probably aren't playing this instead. I don't know, you need to produce a zillion mana, but also care about putting relatively low-cost permanents into play. Maybe if you're doing Cornucopia, Roxanne type of stuff, maybe if you're a very permanent-based ramp deck that tops out at about 5 and maybe wins by doppelganging or something, maybe this does something.
Your dorks, your Llanowar Elves, and your rubies aren't really going to survive long enough to cast this card or whatever, so ramping through creatures isn't really a viable way to get this thing going. But yeah, maybe somebody will find a way to play it somehow in 60 card, but not super duper likely. Okay, up next, we have this anime art beast noble loot Exuberant Explorer for 2 and a green. He's a legendary 1/4. You may play additional land on each of your turns, and he's got an activated ability for 4 and 2 green tap. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature card with mana value less than or equal to the number of lands you control from among them and put it onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order.
So when we got our first loot in Big Score, people didn't like him. They said that he was Magic's Baby Yoda, just sort of a cute mascot-y, and little did they know that Magic's Baby Yoda would just be Baby Yoda in the brave new world of Universes Beyond in Standard. I'm still cautiously in favor of the loot storyline. He's become Jason Vraska's adopted son as they try to use the key to everything to do whatever it is they're doing. I am cautiously optimistic for the storyline because I have hope that it means that Claim the Firstborn will be reprinted into Standard. Has not been yet, but loot was captured by Valgavoth at the end of the Duskmourn story. Spoilers, I guess. Sorry. But so maybe my dream will come true. But in the meantime, here is a card that makes additional lands fall on each of your turns if you draw them.
Which is important. We have a bunch of landfall cards coming into the set. Talk about one in 1 second after this card. But yeah, we've seen some things going on with the Vine Lasher Lookout combo. This obviously, I mean, if you've got 2 Vine Lashers in play and you play 2 fetchable lands, we're starting to look at a lot of damage, right? So maybe this card sees a little bit of play in Standard in some kind of landfall strategy. So here we are. We've come to the next card, Mossborn Hydra for 2 and a green. It is a elemental Hydra with trample. This creature enters with a 1/1 counter on it. 0/0 landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, double the number of 1/1 counters on this creature. So this card's a little bit slow on its own. You know, if you play it on turn 4 and then fetch, you have a 4/4 for that, but it kind of goes much quicker if you have things like Bristly Bill or Ozolith to make those counters double faster or put more counters to double.
Yeah, more counters to double makes this more exciting. Powers of 2. Exponential is faster than linear, so there's some chance for this card.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it, even if it's not amazing. I love landfall. I wanna try some landfall type things with the new cards. Okay, up next we have Ooze. 3 green for a 1/1 indestructible. Whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. Whenever a creature dealt damage by this creature this turn dies, put a 1/1 counter on this creature. So it just sort of keeps growing, and you know, obviously another Ozolith type counters creature, but indestructible is always a cool text.
Yeah, I mean, both this and Urborg Scavengers are countersy, so maybe some sort of green-black counters deck. We've also seen Innkeeper's Talent be pretty good. Maybe something like that could pop up. In older formats, anything that costs green is at least worth thinking about, because Green Devotion is stupid, but this card is worse than Old Growth Troll, which preserves your pips while also ramping you more when it dies, and it's probably worse than Polukranos, because Polukranos gives you a mana sink.
Yeah, and at 3 green in standard, hard to cast.
Yeah, you need to be very green to cast this card reliably in standard.
Next up, we have Preposterous Proportions at 5 and 2 green. Sorcery, creatures you control get +10/+10 and gain vigilance until the end of the turn. You know, it's like funny, but like, do all your creatures already have trample? They need it. They'll just put a 1/1 in front of your creatures or something, and you won't win the game. So obviously a commander card, but
Primeval Bounty, also mostly a commander card. Very like Rite of the Dragon Caller, 6 mana, does not do anything on its own. When you cast a creature spell, it makes a beast. When you cast a non-creature spell, it puts 3 1/1 counters on a creature you control. Landfall, gain 3 life. Too expensive, doesn't do anything right away. Big, dumb, fun cards for new players to play with.
Up next, we have Quilled Greatwurm, 4 colorless, 2 green for a 7/7 worm with trample. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage during your turn, put that many 1/1 counters on it. You may cast this card from your graveyard by removing 6 counters from among creatures you control in addition to paying its other costs. So big, expensive, really cool abilities, probably not playable in any real standard type context.
Yeah, if the counters have to be from creatures you control, if you
Take
could
off impending.
Yeah, if you could take impending counters to cast this thing and just mill over this thing and like accelerate your overlords to cast this thing from the graveyard in your ramp decks, we'd be in business. As is, you can't do that. You can take off counters that are negative, like stun counters on Sleep Cursed Fairy or Unstoppable Slasher, or counters that you just have a zillion of.
You still have to pay the 6.
Yeah, but if paying the 6 with graveyard value is good enough, maybe, but yeah, probably too expensive.
Okay, up next we have Spinner of Souls, 2 and a green for a Spider Spirit with reach 4/3. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
It's above rate. It's a thing you can cast on turn 2 off your Llanowar Elf 4/3. It's big and it's mean. If any of your other stuff dies, it effectively draws you a spell because it finds a creature. Green isn't a great sacrifice color. Also, they'll usually kill this thing first, but sometimes making them do that is worth it. Green isn't a great sacrifice color. Has some stuff that does it. They're like Insidious Fungus, Cankerbloom type cards that you might play. If you're green-black, maybe you want to diversify your removal a little bit to not get wrecked by Saint Elenda, and maybe you'd be interested in playing Comeback Wrong. This triggers off that. The Comeback Wrong creature will get sacrificed, which will draw a card off this. That could be worth it.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing quite a few bad cards at that point to make to make it work, but I like the ability. I like getting more creatures into your hand as it comes down, or not as it comes down. It has to die, right?
Something else has to die.
Something else has to die. Yeah, so that's kind of tricky to pull off probably, but maybe it gets hits on Coco. So it's always, if a card is Coco-able, it's always something to think about in my mind.
All right, Sylvan Scavenging. 1 green enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, choose 1. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, or create a 3/3 green raccoon creature token if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. So if this is on, if you have a creature with power 4 or greater, this card's insane. It's a wedding announcement that makes 3/3s instead of 1/1s. Unfortunately, if you don't have that, say if the thing that happens consistently to you in Standard happens and you get Sunfalled, this card is
just sitting there.
Yeah, it's sitting there doing nothing. And if you need to get a creature into play just for the 1/1 counter, and if you're not getting the raccoon, this card's really bad. This is like worse Invigorating Hot Springs, which most of that value was in hasting stuff. There are ways you can maybe turn this on. Some of them are even raccoon adjacent, which is kind of neat. Slumbering Cerberus is, I guess we didn't talk about him specifically. He's just big. He's a 2-mana 4/2, but with downside that he doesn't untap unless you trigger Morbid. If you trigger Morbid, he untaps on the end step. Having a big enough 2-drop to trigger this on its own is something. There are some good creature lands that can turn this on, but I don't think this card's very good.
Nope, I don't think it's very good either. Okay, now we've got our reprints. Scoozing it up. We just looked at, Standard already kind of has a Scooz, but for those green-black players who don't really want to commit to 2 green, Scooz may be a better option. Got Doubling Season for people trying to do Super Friends type deal, win the game. I don't know. Any of these other cards any good?
You're a Serac enjoyer, aren't you?
I do like Serac, but I didn't really play this one a ton, even when it was in Standard. I like it. I like Haste. Haste is like my favorite keyword, apart from, Trample and Haste are the 2 things I think about, but yeah.
Vivian might do something. Feels a little expensive for Standard to me, but if it gets to come down, kill a relevant artifact, enchantment, or creature with flying and stick around to draw some cards, could be pretty good. I don't know. These are all cards that might see some play. Galt is big. If you have other stuff that's big, it's castable. Hero's Bane is here. Remember Hero's Bane, folks?
I liked Hero's Bane back in the day. It wasn't very good back then either, but who cares? It's a Hydra that gets big and then gets even bigger. Yeah, some cool cards.
That lower rarity, we finally have a Pauper downshift, folks. Bushwhack was an uncommon in Dominaria United, is now a common. These sort of Lay of the Land effects are pretty Pauper playable.
Yeah, you're already trying to only play 17 or fewer lands in some decks.
These are just tapped lands, right? Which you're playing in Pauper mostly anyway. A fight spell is a pretty good alternate mode. So if you're some sort of, you can play Land Grant, and that's actually just an untapped land that fills your graveyard for something like our boy Hooting Man mandrills, setting up Delve. There's Generous Ent, which is reanimation target and a like big thing, which is also sort of the higher end of this effect. But you know, any Lay of the Land effect is basically a playable land in Pauper. So if you're not countersy enough really for Thirsting Roots, you don't have artifact land, you're not really looking to do bridges to animate with Brave the Wilds. There was one in the Jumpstart that I missed called Go Forth, which is sort of a combat trick, but I think Fight Spell is a pretty reasonable thing, especially if you are trying to, you know, put a Delve threat into play and stomp. Having a Fight Spell is a good thing to have.
Can't beat the price either. One is great, right, for fight ability in Pauper. Up next, we have which one of these is actually coming to the set? Oh no,
Dwynen's Elite. They are not giving us Priest of Titania or Nettle Sentinel in Standard. Dwynen's Elite coming to Standard, relevant for Elf decks there. It's also being downgraded to Common for the first time, legal in Pauper. So if you're doing Elf things in Pauper, whether you're trying to do sort of Nettle Sentinel-y, stompy things, or you're trying to like pop off with Elves, this is a good card. It's going to be a 2/2 and a 1/1 most of the time for 2 mana. That's a good deal.
Yeah, no, this card will probably... I think that the Elves deck would probably play some number of this card. My boy... Fynn the Fangbearer. I tried to make Fynn work in Historic many more times than I should have. I'll probably try and make it work in Standard again, but yeah, I love this card. I love Infect. I love Death Touch. Love it all. He is a generic and a green legendary creature, 1/3 Death Touch. Whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. So obviously you play Bilious Skulldweller on 1, Fynn on 2, hit him with the Bilious Skulldweller, and now they have 3 poison counters. So
Corrupted online.
Yeah, Corrupted is online. That's fun. I like Infect. I like this card. I will probably play it in Standard as well. We still have all of our favorites from what is that? Is that all it will be one? What is that?
Yeah, that's all will be one.
Yeah, so we've got Venerated Rot Priest to help us out. Infectious Bite. We still have that black -4/-4 proliferate spell, right? Or did that one?
Yeah, Dwynen is also one.
Is still here. So I'll be here trying it.
Infectious Bite normally wouldn't be a constructed playable card, but
if creature has Death Touch.
Yeah, if it's triggering Rot Priest and maybe dealing 2 poison as it kills something, and the thing, everything has Death Touch to kill. That's like Searing Blood, or that's better than Searing Blood in a deck like that.
Oh, you spent your turn 4 dropping down a Shieldred. Too bad, it's gone. Infectious Bite. Like, I don't know. I love this strategy. There's nothing more to say about it. I've taken up too much time already.
All right, let's talk Llanowar Elves.
For real this time.
So it's here. It's good. Any sort of 3 mana card that was previously maybe not good enough due to being 3 mana is a lot better now. We don't have Elvish Mystic or any other. We only have 1 mana Dork. You're only playing 4 of them. And that means that it's not going to be as consistent as any sort of 1 to 3 strategy that you would try in, say, Pioneer. We do, however, have Ruby during Tracker. In fact, we have Ruby forever because she's also in Foundations. So when Lord of the Rings was in Alchemy and we had Delighted Halfling there, I played a fair bit of Naya Legends in Alchemy. Having Ruby really helps a 1-elf format. When you only have 1 mana Dork, first of all, you're going to draw that Dork on turn 2 approximately 100% of the time. So you need to fill out your mana acceleration, and 2 mana Dork with haste is a pretty good way to do that. You don't have the elf on 1, you play Ruby on 2, tap her, play the elf. Or you do have the elf on 1, you don't have a 3-drop, but you have Ruby and another 2 mana spell. You go Ruby and use Ruby's mana and 1 more mana to play that.
So people are always complaining about this sort of style of ramp from creatures for some reason, even though it's the weakest form. They're like, oh, the power level of 3-cost spells goes way Yep, and that's true to some degree, but every deck is running 12 kill spells in Standard pre-board. Every single one. So it's just like, okay, I play my Llanowar Elves on turn 1, cut down. Okay, it's gone. So, like, it is what it is. I don't think that this card is unfair. I don't think that people need to, like, live in fear. Like, it's going to get killed every single game. Like, you'll never actually get to ramp with the Llanowar Elves. Maybe I'm, like, a little bit negative about it, but I don't see this really changing very much about the speed of things, because you might be more worried about one of your 12 removal spells leaving your hand, I guess.
Yeah, it does removal check people harder than most things in Standard do right now. I think it's going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be good, but I think that 99% of the time it doesn't matter if you're first or second, you play it, they cut it down.
Actually, I guess it's not even true that it removal checks that, because the red decks already removal check you pretty.
You have to. If you can't, it's going to take up your Torch the Tower, or it's going to take up your cut down. You can't let a Heartfire hero go, or you lose the game already. So you can't let a Llanowar Elves go, or you lose the game. But you don't have to worry about that. You're running 500 removal spells in every deck. I love the fact that this is in here. I love mid-range ramp, which is not possible unless you have 1-cost dorks. Like, the 2-cost things don't work in mid-range ramp. That's too slow to count on as a ramping tactic. So I love the fact that this card is here. I'm super stoked, but don't. I mean, you can sit in fear of it if you want, but you know for a fact that you're gonna queue up into your standard queue with 12 kill spells pre-board and 20 post-board, so nothing to worry about in my opinion. Maybe I'm just negative. Who cares?
All right, Rec Sage is here. I mean, you know what it does. It's an elf. There are variations on this. If you care about it being an elf, you'll play it.
Yeah, Rec Sage, cool card from the past. We love disenchanting. But that's all of our cards. I hope you enjoyed all of our recaps. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, tell a friend. We're Hooting Mandrills.
And I'll keep your eyes out for gameplay videos as we do some testing leading up to the release of Foundations on Arena.
Peace.